welcome to another episode of the Transfer Show here on Anfield Index. And I am, of course, joined by Mr. Dave Davis to talk you through all the latest stories. Just 1 second, Dave. just bear with me here. Yeah. There we go. Cheers, butter.
Cheers, people. Enjoy your weekends.
I hope you all enjoy yourselves because, unlike me, I hope you have been enjoying yourselves. I didn't absolutely take on board what we were doing, what we had done. It didn't register until I saw Arne Slot on holidays when there's a game to prepare for, and I realized what a massive nerd I was, worrying about points totals and records from Mo. So from now on, it's all about celebration. And even during this show, I hope you'll forgive me, folks, but I'm going to be on the beer as we speak because we have some very interesting news and we need to get cracking, Dave, because there's just about an hour's worth of stuff if we go fast. Probably the big one that we want to start with is the one that has the most, well, we could start with the most exciting. Maybe we'll save that because it doesn't have as much legs as the more realistic one that seems to be all but done. We've spoken on this show now for many weeks about Frimpong, and it looks as if that is almost over the line.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's been brewing for a while, and bar the shouting, this all feels done. The only reason it's not done right this second is Bayern Leverkusen have got a game tomorrow, haven't they, to finish the German season, who, funnily enough, are a team we're keeping a big eye on now all of a sudden, realistically, for their last game. But once that's done, Liverpool, as many journalists you can see on the screen, it's had the Ornstein bomb, Joyce, every journalist you can pretty much name has said that Liverpool are going to trigger this release clause for Jeremy Frimpong. And naturally, it's been a case of digging to get any details on this. The big thing that we had, that most things out there, don't get me wrong, but the big thing we had on this, Trev, is that the fee, I think everyone knows it, around the 30 million quid mark. But the big thing about his wages, it'll be one of those 5 with an option for a 6-year deal. But because of their amount, they're almost seeing as they're saving against Frimpong, against what Trent's wages are currently, the deal almost pays for itself a little bit in that sense, which makes it even more attractive, along with the homegrown, the price tag, all those types of things as well. So, yeah, barring the screaming and shouting, it might even be tomorrow. We just don't know realistically, but everyone is just waiting for the announcement that here we go for Jeremy Frimpong to be joining Liverpool.
It's kind of cringeworthy, isn't it, that we've all decided to just go with it, give in and adapt the here we go, because actually, you know what? He's fucking good at catchphrases, is that the Italian lad, fair play to him. So is there anything else we need to tease out on this in terms of details? You've given us a theoretical contract duration. We're expecting that he'll be on good but not frightening wages.
No.
And the kid himself, from what I can hear, although, there was, last time we spoke, an awful lot of people were saying that a huge amount of this stuff was coming from not even his agent, but a Frimpong adjacent sort of a lad who was doing a lot of the
company, yeah.
Yes, who was doing a lot of the talking. So what's changed between then and now in terms of where you're feeling in terms of confidence with this?
Yeah, we said it last week. A lot of this was, we bet it would happen because of all the smoke and all the noise, which is exactly what we said. But we wanted to be honest, and a lot of the noise was coming from his management company and bits around that. But obviously the smoke, there's noise for a reason, and Liverpool decided to pull the trigger on this. And we did it on Transfer Market Metrics with Bart and talked about analysts. And one of the things I enjoyed about that show was I was able to prove that my geek was better than Bart's, to be honest, and had more of an analyst and a little bit things on there, which was quite funny. But the big thing about getting Frimpong and Kerk in, because people, we talked about this last week, are like, are we not going to defend anymore? Is this not the plan? Are we just going to win every game 5-4? And one of the big things, as me and Bart's chatted about, we got from the analyst was The big thing about Kerk and Frimpong from a defensive element, they will protect us in transition, counter-attack. That's a big thing the analysts believe. Their pace, their recovery runs can be really valuable that way. And also, it's a bit like the money ball, that Billy Bean quote, isn't it? That like, he gets on base. Do I care if it's a run or a walk? They get on base. The one thing Frimpong and Kerk do, Trev, is they get the ball in the box. Now, that's not just a get to the byline, old style winger and cross it back. It can be through a pass across, whatever it may be. But Frimpong is third in the Bundesliga. Kerk is third in the Premier League from crosses or into the box, which can be on the floor, pass into the box, however you want to describe it. So that also factors into it in the style you think we can play. Well, I'm also saying fullbacks because I think everyone knows this. They could use him higher up or they could change the style a little bit with Frimpong. He gives that flexibility. So I'm a bit like you. Do I have reservations? Yeah. But it's Friday. We're giddy. We did one of these on Tuesdays and the stories just keep coming. So, like, fuck it. Let's just run with it now. If you can't beat them, join them, eh?
I'm exactly in the same place. The logic has gone out the window for a Friday evening. I can't help but notice that you've mentioned Kerk quite a lot there, which people probably picked up on. It's not as part of our show this evening. Are you speaking about him in the way you were speaking about Frimpong last week with a feeling that it's looking like it's highly likely because it just won't go away?
Yeah, I think we can be honest on this. Do I have that imminent or anything like that? No, not leaning into that at all. But because of all the smoke, all the things we said previously, I think 90% of Liverpool fan base would be, if it didn't happen or we pulled out or it was just a smokescreen, I think they'd be honest. They'd be a little surprised, wouldn't they? Yes, Liverpool love a smokescreen. Don't get me wrong. But I think we'd all be surprised if Kerk wasn't the serious target now.
And we might as well fold in the slightly sort of sobering story in here before we get to the giddy excitement part again, which is we've talked about Frimpong, we've talked about his attacking qualities. Everyone is aware of that, and it is highly exciting. And we are going there on a Friday evening. But one thing we haven't got down on our roster, but you and I spoke about before the mics went live, was the poor lad who'll have to do a lot of covering for Frimpong. Theoretically is Ibrahima Konate, and yet we are still, aren't we, where we were, which is the sounds are either not there or a little bit negative in terms of his contract. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's not really another way of pitching it at all, to be honest. There's no monitoring, covering, looking at this. This is not, I've not got anyone that can give us good news at all around this. That it seems to be that contract talks still aren't progressing. In fact, there's more people you can get that, you know, as you know, from the screenshots and the things we share that seem to be can't get nothing. It seems to be a bit of a worrying silence. So I think a lot of people are starting to steer into that. Well, if he doesn't sign, he's going to have to go. And then we're back to that conversation last week, aren't we, where we said, well, that's great. But so you're going to go PSG probably over Real Madrid and all those theoretical discussions. But all clubs will also know he's got a year left to go at the same time as well. So it's basically there's nothing good around that conversation right now.
Yeah, especially when we fold in the fact that the guy that we had been lining up, the exciting young kid that is Tyson, has hitched his wagon to Real. So interesting times ahead there. And certainly this will be a more complex area that we'll be covering on further shows because there's no choice in the matter, it seems. But to get back into Friday evening beer garden mode, and it is absolutely sun is splitting the stones here in Ireland, and I feel like having a little bit of a fanciful chat. Now, keep the ludicrous, don't believe it, are you stupid comments out of the chats, please. We have a reason why we're dealing with the Florian Wirtz thing, and I've already done about 70 million cynical tweets on X or whatever it's called these days about the likelihood of Liverpool getting this guy. Yeah. And it just keeps getting a little bit better in terms of the possibility. It's a little bit of a long shot to say the least, but it doesn't seem to be just as absolutely laughable as it had been in the past. Talk us through where we're at with this, because there's a lot, isn't there? There's quite a few details here.
I mean, we talked about Tijuana Tacos last week, didn't we? And Liverpool looking for top shelf, elite attackers. And we can be honest and said this wasn't a name that we knew or discussed in the mix. But what a way, like how this just dropped. And this is where I think, as fans, that people we mock and we talk about nerds and laptops and all this, etc., blah, blah, blah. No one had Florian Wirtz getting on a plane on Tuesday and speaking to like Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, which, had stood up, came to Liverpool, had a chat with his parents, with his entourage, looked at the surrounding area. Like Liverpool, if we were a company, we've laid out our best pitch, is the way I would put it. Liverpool have made a hard pitch to Florian Wirtz, as in, come here, come and be a star, come and be a hero. They've rolled out the red carpet. They've kept good relations with his camp. They've made it clear, we are trying for this one. This is not a like pie in the sky, transfershagger.com, rumor. This is genuinely serious. And on the screen, as David Ornstein put, like Liverpool have made contact. That meeting has taken place, Trev. So there's a couple of things to this. Let's start at the point where everyone negative will start. People will be Bayern Munich. I think Liverpool expect that to probably still be the case somewhat, and they understand that. But they can't just let a chance to get an elite talent pass by at all. At the same time, we've done the pitch. We know that. We're ready to pay the money. Leverkusen are giving us every encouraging sign in the world to get a bid on the table if Bayern do the same, which is fully expected. So I just pulled a few quotes from different bits. It's important to say. So shout out a few names. Shout out to Chris Williams, who's covered the Bundesliga for a number of the years and is a Liverpool fan as well. And he tweeted, Leverkusen were more open to selling Wirtz abroad than to Bayern. Can easily envisage a situation whereby any bid matched by a Premier League club would be accepted over Bayern's. Leverkusen do not want him to go. And we got that a couple of times this week, that Leverkusen are trying to avoid this at all costs. And if you don't believe that, let's just look at this quote from the Leverkusen CEO about Max Eberl. Fernando Caro. Well, I think nothing of Max Eberl. Absolutely nothing, ! And I wouldn't negotiate with him.
Wow.
Leverkusen hate Bayern. They do not want to sell their star boy to Bayern at all. Now, this is important to say for digging. I don't want to go too fast on this, actually. There's an expectation that Bayern put a bid on the table quite soon. That is just to start the process. And it sounds crazy to say this, but like 100 million euros just to start the process. Knowing full well it's going to be rejected. But it's to show Wirtz they're serious. And the other thing to say is, and we'll come on to some of the troubles they've got, Bayern aren't just finding this easy to come up with cash-wise, because they got contracts to sort, as we talked about, players that are trying to move on, renew, all sorts of things going on. So the Bayern propaganda machine, the Christian Folks, the Altobellis of this, they are in overdrive trying to help this. But the big thing to also call out with this, and we got this from a good few sources, the Wirtz camp hates that. The Wirtz camp are not about propaganda, transfer stories. They want to pick where they think his best career development is. Where's the best project for trophies and all that? They're not about things coming out. When sensationalism, that's the antithesis of what Wirtz is in camp are all about, we're being told. So the reason still to be giddy is Bayern could play themselves out of it. And this could also unfold in the sense of the first bid is going to be rejected. Of course it is. But then it starts, doesn't it? And it'll start to get a bit higher, at which point there's a full expectation that Liverpool and Manchester City put bids on the table. At which point, it's quite clear. You can see on the quote on the screen where Leverkusen want him to go. So then the only way that Wirtz gets that is if he comes out, publicly and says, no, I want to move to Bayern. At which point, the hometown hero is no more somewhat, isn't he, at the same time? So there's so much drama in the mix almost with this. But just to be clear, he has met Liverpool. Liverpool have made a pitch. Wirtz and his people were in England this week. There's a chance. Is there a likelihood? I will not say that. That would just be a lie. But there's a real chance.
Malcolm in the chat is wondering about City as a rival for him if he did, for some reason, not pick up the most obvious move, which is to Bayern. I've heard stuff, but the stuff I've heard honestly seems opinion rather than any fact whatsoever. It's people saying that, the camp prefers Liverpool or that City are second favourites. Now, people can say anything, can't they, online? Right. I haven't heard anything that would stand up to any scrutiny at all. In terms of City as a rival, I mean, let's be honest, they're up until this season record, and Guardiola himself, there's a lot of pull there, man. We have to be very realistic about what they would be by way of a rival should he decide that Germany is not where he's going to continue his career.
Yeah, the only, and again, you're right, because people can tweet. I'm not saying it's wrong. We're all entitled to our opinion. But the only thing I really got on that from City is, yes, City is still in the race. Absolutely. If it comes down to pure wages, City are going to blow everyone out the water. But that's not what's believed from the Wirtz camp, that's not a driver. But I'm always reluctant on that when people say it's not about the money. Well, money can sway things. That's not derogatory. These boys are obviously dealing with their careers and their futures and all that. It just is what it is a little bit with the money. But the big thing we got from the City point of view, which could work against them, is everyone knows that Pep's clock is ticking. Players signing for Manchester City now are not back in the day when it was like Kevin De Bruyne and Silva of, 6-7 years ago, as in like this is going to be a long-term project. Everyone knows Pep's tired. Pep's put a time limit on when he's going as well. So that just right now, that isn't working in their favour is all I had on that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly where I landed with it as well, is that it is a finite period that Guardiola is going to be around for. Man, it's exciting. And I'm just like you said earlier on, let's just lean into the excitement of the whatever small percentage possibility it is. Let's just enjoy the possibility of it. Now, we said earlier on that, with the way things are with Ibu's contract, there is a good chance we're going to need to get a centre-half. We were looking at getting a centre-half regardless. And we still don't know what's going to happen with, say, the likes of Kwanzaa and Joe Gomez in terms of their futures at the club. So recruitment at centre-half seems like it's going to be a thing. Now, you dropped the name last week, and we were amongst the first, we were the first people that I heard with this name. And now it turns out that there's actually quite a lot to this. Just remind folks who we were speaking about last week and of the qualities that this kid has.
Yeah, we kind of said we'd heard a name, but it wasn't really our name to drop because we didn't have it, and then we couldn't get it stood up straight away. But fair play, and he's an annoying smug git at times, Sam Maguire. But yeah, he got it stood up. He got info, and it's his exclusive, isn't it? So Tomas Araujo, however you want to pronounce it, the Portuguese international, an interesting player because people will go, "Oh, he's a right back." No, he's not. He's a centre back who also plays right back. Like a certain Joe Gomez at the same time, but has played it quite a bit for Benfica recently. 6'1", 61% aerial duel success. So they're not a behemoth like a Konate style at all, but very respectable. And if people will jump on that and saying, well, that's low, it's about what Huijsen is as well, isn't it? And we're looking at him seriously. So, you got to have the balance. You can't be hypocritical. The other big thing to say about him is rapid. Absolutely rapid. And we kind of spoke off air about this because pace, not smallest, but not the biggest, and can cover right back. That sounds very much like a Joe Gomez almost, doesn't it? Like that type of player. And you wonder a little bit of 18-19 Liverpool, where Virgil was the aerial dominant one that could pass it, and Joe Gomez was the quick on the cover one that could also just run it out on occasions when he needed to. And that's another strength of Araujo, is that sort of carrying option, because he's quick as well, isn't he? So that's an option at the same time. So you never know. And he wouldn't be cheap at all, as Sam's article talks about with his release clause. But yeah, definitely had it stood up. It's Sam's exclusive, important to say that. But yeah, had it stood up as well, Liverpool are definitely looking at Araujo.
And you said that Sam mentioned in his article the release clause amount. Do you happen to recall that off the top of your head?
I think it's around 70 million euros, if I'm right. Someone who might have read it might correct me in the chat panel. And I get it. I also think when you put that image on screen, as soon as you mention a Benfica player, everyone will be, no, Núñez, no, pull emergency, like don't say like that. But they're not all Darwin Núñez, are they? So that's important to remember. There's a lot to like with this guy.
Yeah. It seems like everyone we're interested in comes with quite a hefty tag, with the exception of the most likely signing so far, which we covered at the top of the show. Now, a fella who has won hearts and minds left, right, and center is our Italian chum, Federico Chiesa. Seems to be incredibly popular with the other players. He is popular with the fans. He's got a belter song. Anytime he gets on the field, he does well. It's just that our man Wayne Lineker's mate doesn't fancy him. So we have to be realistic about his future at the club. He costs 10 million, we believe. I'm not sure if we have to pay the full amount of that. And so we're not talking about dramatic swings either way. And you would imagine Liverpool could recoup their money were they to sell, but a sale doesn't seem to be the most likely story at the moment, Dave.
No, it was a Gazzetta story, which, without being derogatory, sometimes it's just absolute nonsense. So you know, we went digging on this because it didn't have anything sort of on Tuesday, whenever it was, about this loan and going back. But actually, a loan's important to say, that getting a bit of info on it this week, as you know, that wages are a little bit prohibitive for the Italian clubs. They're never as big wages, are they? Never as big a payer. So getting Federico off the books, and before anyone jumps in, because he, like you said, he is just a cult hero, and he has got a banging tune that loves being sung on the concourse. But you know, we hear the song more than we see the player, so we've got to put that in the mix. Of course, he's free to leave Anfield, but the wages, from what we have, are making it a little bit difficult, as in it could even be one of those where people won't like to hear this, but we only share what we get. An Italian club maybe takes on, you know, like 50, 60% of the wages, and Liverpool pay the other percentage in that regard, just so it's a bit prohibitive. And Liverpool, yeah, of course, they're looking, if that happens, for an obligation. The Italian clubs will want to pay or have an option in that regard as well. So I think people, just brace yourselves. Everyone's cult heroes time is coming to an end, and it might not be the deal everyone's wanting either, but you never know.
I think, having lived through the horror of a certain Liverpool centre half never being released from the club and being kept for all Nat against his will for so many years, I think everyone would just want to see Federico Chiesa playing football. We'd ideally like to see him playing football for Liverpool. We're all realistic enough to know that that doesn't seem to be a potential future for him. So I really, really hope that, even if it means like taking some sort of financial hit or whatever, that he's allowed to be freed up to actually play football somewhere and be part of a thing going forward. He genuinely seems like a lovely lad, and he's clearly a very talented footballer. Part of me, though, I'll be honest, hopes we keep him hanging around and there's some sort of wild redemption thing where he comes in and does really well in the season to come, as we make it 21-7, because that's all we care about, if we're being perfectly honest. We've saved the best to last, haven't we, buddy? We've saved the best to last, and it's a name that's been mentioned a few times in the chat thread, and you and I had a bit of a giddy conversation about this possibility just before the mics went live here. because obviously the Wirtz thing is it's exciting. It's Friday evening beer garden chat, but we know it's a long shot. But is there a possible, more likely, more local target that will get everybody excited? I'm going to leave you to walk us through this whole story.
Yeah, we've talked about midfielders, and we've been quite honest to say the names that we've got have included Dario Asugo, as we said, from Sporting Lisbon, Tom Bischoff from Hoffenheim, Kone from Reims, and it seemed to be, like a secondary midfielder potential. And we'd said specifically, people, we know you want us to say the names of Wharton, Belaber, etc., but we're not getting them, so not going to lie to you and say it. Okay, we got one. We got a name. We got one of them. Adam Wharton, currently at Crystal Palace, and got a few bits on it this week as well. That Liverpool are making a move for Adam Wharton. Liverpool do like him. And people will then ask about the fee. Information that it would be up to or around a max of £70 million. That there isn't a sort of as it was described to us, a gentleman's agreement with Palace in that way. And other info is that we got Wharton himself, ambitious kid, but him and his camp want to come back up north. And naturally, there's us. But this is maybe the bit to mention that's important as well. City are absolutely in the mix for Adam Wharton as well. People shouldn't forget they made a bid for him in January. It was a bit of a cheeky bid. They knew it would get rejected, really, but it was more to show the intent to Wharton's camp that, that they were still interested in him. So he will absolutely be a City target as well. We're all waiting for it to sort of start moving, but saying it honestly, nothing on Belaber at all. Don't want to pretend that for 1 second to us. But as of this week, Adam Wharton is of real interest to Liverpool, is what we have.
I mean, I think I can hear people getting excited literally across the land about that possibility. We can all imagine what that kid could be in this team. Like you said, hugely ambitious on a level, something you told me before that we'll save for some other time.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for at all. But I like that. And of course, I saw somebody saying in the chat there, it's a good observation. It seems like Chelsea's going for everyone. We're going for him. We're very used to that. And you and I spoke just before we started about how Real Madrid are constantly copying Liverpool's homework. Yeah, well, you see, there is a finite amount of fantastic footballers. Yeah. And there are a lot of clubs who consider themselves to be fantastic destinations. We just happen to be the champions. We just happen to be at the start of a project. And I think this is going to swing at least one of these bigger names to us. And I'd be very optimistic about the Wharton thing. That's really, really interesting. Is there anything else on that at all that we can give folks, or we just leave it at that? You did mention that the Ornstein link, didn't you? That it was that was a thing.
Yeah, because David Ornstein, people were like, who's he referring to? As mentioned, as he said on his, I think it's NBC, he does it with, isn't it? Said that, yeah, his information, Liverpool are in for multiple players right now on multiple deals, of well-known players as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to get giddy because you can only work on the info you've got. And 4 people go, oh, you're just saying Wharton for a name. Well, we'd be a great big bunch of tits if we spent all summer so far going, we haven't got Wharton, would we? And then to say, like, we've got the info this week, it is what it is. But I'm trying not to get too excited that our info right now is Liverpool are in the mix for Wirtz and Wharton, which to me would just be a massive W for the summer, wouldn't it? Let's be honest, Trev. That is enough to send anyone giddy.
Oh, man. Seriously. It changes. It could be such a game changer. And regardless, we are going to see a very, very altered squad and a new way of playing football, I think, in the season ahead. And it's just massively exciting. Now that I finally realized that we're champions.